Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We have got a really substantial stack of research to get through today, and I am genuinely excited about this one.
Me too.
We're looking at something that, it defines civilization, but usually feels completely invisible to us. Until we try to learn it, that is. We're talking about the massive, tangled, and, well, let's be honest, somewhat chaotic web of East Asian languages.
It is a massive web. And looking at these sources, I'd say it's less of a web and more of a, I don't know, a 2,000-year-old construction site.
A construction site?
Yeah, where different architects keep trying to build on top of each other's work without ever sharing the blueprints first.
That is the perfect way to frame it. Because the hook for me, and I think for a lot of you listening, is this assumption of similarity.
Right.
You look at China, Japan, Korea from the outside. From a Western perspective, you see shared aesthetics, shared history, sticks, you see the characters. Exactly. You see these intricate characters. And the natural assumption is that the languages themselves are cousins, like Spanish and Italian.
You assume they share a genetic lineage.
Yeah.
That they all branch off the same family tree.
But that's the aha moment right at the top of these readings. Genetically, linguistically, they're practically strangers.
Complete strangers. They're neighbors, sure, but they don't share any linguistic DNA.
So what are we looking at then?
Well, China is the heavyweight here, obviously. Chinese is part of the Sino-Tibetan family, but Korean and Japanese, totally unrelated to Chinese.
Structurally, they're polar opposites, right?
Polar opposites. Chinese is what we call an isolating language.
Yep.
It's very sparse. The grammar relies almost entirely on word order. Words don't really change shape.
Whereas Korean and Japanese are agglutinative. I just love that word. It sounds exactly like what it is.
It does. It comes from the Latin for to glue. In Korean or Japanese, you just stick suffixes onto a word to change its meaning.
You glue all the grammatical bits together
into these long chains. In Chinese, you never do that. So you have these neighbors who are running on completely different operating systems.
Like trying to run macOS software on a Windows 95 machine.
Exactly, but they've been trying to share data for 2 millennia.
And that seems to be the core theme of this deep dive. It's not just a history of words, it's a history of reaction. It's a story of cultures encountering a prestigious foreign tech, a writing system, a religion, and just struggling to force-fit it into their own reality.
That is the mission statement today. We're going to trace how China, Korea, and Japan borrowed, struggled with, and eventually reinvented writing systems.
And what's the really cool part?
The really cool part is how religion, specifically Buddhism, accidentally taught them how their own languages actually worked.
Okay, let's start at the bedrock, China. To understand the reaction, you have to understand the source.
Yeah.
And the research goes way further back than I expected.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking engravings on pottery, Neolithic culture, back to the 5th millennium BC.
Those are the deep precursors, yeah. The linguists still argue over whether that's writing or just, symbolic art.
But the real smoking gun.
The real smoking gun, the moment we know we have a fully formed writing system, is around 1200 BC. The oracle bones.
I have always loved that name. It sounds like something out of a fantasy game. The Oracle Bones.
It's very literal, though. They were tortoise shells, ox shoulder blades.
And they used them for divination?
The Shang dynasty kings, yeah. They'd carve a question about the harvest, a war. Even the king's toothache apply heat until it cracked, and then interpret the cracks.
And then write the answer down on the bone itself.
Right. But the key takeaway here is the continuity. The sources point out that the characters carved on those bones 3,000 years ago, they're directly traceable to characters on a smartphone in Shanghai today.
That is unique in human history. I mean, Egyptian hieroglyphs died out. They had to be cracked like a code with the Rosetta Stone.
But Chinese characters just evolve.
They evolved. The style changed for sure, but the chain was never broken. So let's get under the hood. How does this system actually work? Because the common misconception is that they're all just little pictures. A drawing of a tree means tree.
That's the first step. It's what the ancient Chinese little school curriculum taught. Around age 8, you'd learn the 6 arts of character composition.
And the first one is pictographs.
Exactly. Shangxing. The character for sun looks like a sun. Mouth is a little square opening.
Okay, simple enough. But you can't run an empire on just pictures.
No, you can't. So then you get ideographs, or zingxi, abstract concepts. Above is a stroke above a line. Below is a stroke below it.
Still pretty intuitive.
But again, you can't build a vocabulary of 50,000 words just drawing pictures and arrows. You need a system that can scale.
And that's where the philologographs come in, the xingsheng. The sources said this is something like 85% of all characters. That statistic blew my mind.
That's the engine of the language. It's a compound system. It's brilliant.
How does it work?
You take one part of the character that gives you the semantic category, the meaning part. We call it the radical. Then you combine it with another character that's just there to give you a hint about the pronunciation.
The example in the notes was river.
Right. So you have words like jiang and he. Both characters use the water radical on the left that tells you, hey, this thing is a liquid.
Got it.
But the right side of the character is a completely different phonetic component that just tells you roughly how to say the word.
It's such a brilliant hack.
Right.
It's like if, in English, to write the word pear, the fruit,
Yeah.
I drew a little picture of a fruit,
To tell you it's food.
and next to it I drew a picture of a bear to tell you it rhymes with bear.
That is a perfect analogy. It separates meaning from sound and then just glues them back together. And this allowed the system to expand pretty much indefinitely.
So they have this robust working technology,
Yeah.
and then it gets a shock, the foreign disruption.
Buddhism arrives, 1st century AD.
This is a massive cultural collision. You have missionaries, scriptures all coming from India and Central Asia, and they're bringing texts written in Sanskrit.
And Sanskrit is a completely different beast.
Totally.
It's Indo-European. It's an alphabetic language. Highly inflected words are constantly changing shape based on grammar. And the sentence structure is subject, object, verb.
And Chinese is none of those things.
None of them. It's isolating, uninflected, and subject, verb, object. They're not just oil and water.
They're oil and a solid rock.
Right. So the translators, these teams of monks, they faced an absolute nightmare. Translating these complex metaphysical concepts from a fluid alphabetic language into a static character-built one.
And the notes mentioned that a lot of words we just think of as Chinese today actually came out of this struggle.
Oh, absolutely. They had to invent vocabulary. Take the word for world shijie, or now xianzai. These were terms repurposed or popularized specifically for Buddhist concepts of time and cosmology.
Words they just didn't need before.
Exactly. And it wasn't just philosophy. You saw the note about grapes, right? Putao.
Yeah, a loan word from Old Iranian.
Brought back by envoys from the West. So you see this absorption of foreign data happening.
But the biggest twist here, for me, was the phonology. The idea that Chinese scholars didn't know they had tones.
It sounds absurd, doesn't it? Mandarin is famous for its tones.
Right.
But it's that classic fish doesn't know it's in water scenario. They just spoke. They didn't analyze the sound.
Until they heard Sanskrit.
Exactly. They start studying Sanskrit, which is incredibly precise about sound and vibration, and they realize, wait a minute, in Sanskrit, the pitch doesn't change a word's meaning, but in our language, it does.
So studying a foreign language revealed the hidden mechanics of their own. That's so cool.
It sparked a linguistic revolution, but they hit a wall.
Which was...
How do you describe pronunciation if you don't have an alphabet? If I show you a new character in a dictionary, how do I tell you how to say it without using letters?
Ah, and that's where they developed the Fanky system, the cut and splice.
It's an algorithmic solution. It's so clever. Let's say you want to teach someone the word cat, but you have no alphabet.
Okay.
You'd use two other words they already know, like cut and rat. You take the initial sound from cut, the C, and the vowel, and ending from rat, the at.
Cut plus rat equals cat.
Exactly. They use two known Chinese characters to triangulate the sound of a third one. Character A gives the initial consonant. Character B gives the vowel and the tone.
And that became the standard for dictionaries for centuries.
It did, and it eventually led to monks like Shoen creating these rhyme tables, which were basically the first alphabet of initial sounds, all using Chinese characters.
Okay, so China's grappling with India. While that's happening, we move to the next layer of the web, Korea. And this seems like an even more painful struggle.
It was, because China was grappling with a foreign philosophy. Korea was grappling with a foreign writing system that was just structurally incompatible with their language.
They adopted Chinese characters. Hanja wholesale. But like we said, Korean is agglutinative. It's all about sticking suffixes on words. Chinese characters don't do that.
They don't do suffixes at all. In Chinese, a character is a self-contained unit. In Korean, a verb is like a piece of clay you keep molding.
Right.
You add a particle for politeness, a particle for past tense. Trying to write a Korean sentence with Chinese characters is like trying to build with Lego bricks that have no studs.
They just slide off each other.
Exactly.
And these early workarounds they came up with, Idu and Hangzhou, they sound incredibly clunky.
Clunky is generous. They were makeshift code systems. You'd write a sentence where the main nouns and verbs were Chinese characters used for their meaning.
Okay.
But then for the Korean grammatical particles, the glue, you would insert other Chinese characters and you just ignore their meaning and only use them for their sound.
So you're reading a text and you have to mentally switch between this symbol is a picture and this symbol is just a sound effect. That sounds exhausting.
It was incredibly inefficient, and it meant literacy was just locked away for the elites, the only people who had the time for these mental gymnastics.
Enter King Sejong, 1446.
The hero of our story, Sejong and his Hall of Worthies, they knew this system was failing the people. So he puts out the Hunminjeongeum, the correct sounds for the instruction of the people.
He invents Hangul. And the research here calls it the most scientific writing system in the world. What makes it scientific? Because visually, it still looks a bit blocky.
That blocky look is a deliberate choice to make it look nice next to Chinese characters. But the internal logic is radical. The shapes of the letters are actually anatomical diagrams of your mouth.
Wait, literally?
Literally. Take the letter for the K sound. In Hangul, it's a shape that looks like a right angle.
Okay, I could picture it.
That shape depicts the root of your tongue blocking the back of your throat, which is exactly what your tongue gains when you make a K sound.
That is wild. I never knew that.
And it goes on. The letter for N looks like the tip of your tongue touching the ridge behind your teeth. The letter for M is a square, representing your closed lips.
So the alphabet is basically a user manual for your mouth.
It is. It's feature-based. No other alphabet does this. The letter A in English doesn't look like anything. It's just history. Hangul is bioengineered.
So Sejong drops this incredible technology. It's efficient, easy to learn. They said a smart man could learn it in a morning. The elites must have hated it.
Oh, they despised it. This is that classic tension between efficiency and prestige.
Right.
The elites, the Yangban class, felt that Chinese characters were the only true writing. It connected them to the great civilization of China.
So they saw Hangul as, what, a child's toy?
They called it vulgar script, dismissed it as a script for women and commoners. And for about 400 years, this superior technology was just sidelined because it didn't have that cultural status.
Until nationalism in the 19th and 20th centuries.
Exactly.
That's a powerful lesson. The best tech doesn't always win.
It's rarely about that.
Which brings us to Japan. If Korea was trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, Japan, it's like they decided to smash the peg, glue it back together, and paint it 3 different colors.
Japan is the absolute remix culture of linguistics. Like Korea, no writing system until about 400 AD. They import Chinese characters, kanji, and face the exact same mismatch.
Agglutinative grammar, isolating characters.
Right. Their first attempt, kanbun, was fascinatingly convoluted. They would write in pure classical Chinese, but then they'd annotate the text with little code marks.
What for?
To tell the Japanese reader to jump around the sentence and rearrange the words in their head to fit Japanese grammar.
That sounds like running a software emulator in your brain.
It is, and incredibly cognitive heavy. Then they tried Manushu, similar to the Korean method, using Chinese characters just for sound. But writing one Japanese word might take 3 or 4 complex Chinese characters, way too slow.
So how did they get to the system they have now? With kanji, but also hiragana and katakana.
Those 2 scripts, the kana, they just evolve from simplification. They are essentially eroded Chinese characters.
Eroded.
Think about speed. Hiragana is the curvy, flowing one. It came from the grass-style, super cursive Chinese calligraphy. You read complex character fast enough, over and over. Eventually it just melts into a simpler, squiggly shape. That became hiragana.
And katakana, the sharp, angular one?
That came from fragmentation. Monks taking notes needed shorthand, so instead of writing a whole character, they'd just write a distinctive corner of it or one specific stroke. They took a fragment and gave it a sound value.
So Japan ends up with this Frankenstein's monster of a system.
It is. But it works. They use kanji for the main word roots, hiragana for all the grammatical glue, and katakana for emphasis or foreign words, all in the same sentence.
And just to make it more complex, they kept the Chinese pronunciations too.
Yes. The onyomi versus kunyomi problem.
Explain that.
When Japan imported a character, they also imported its Chinese sound. That's the onyomi. But they already had a native Japanese word for that thing. That's the kunyomi.
So a single character has at least 2 ways to be read.
At least. Take the character for water. If it's by itself, you read it mizu, the native Japanese word. But in a compound word like swimming, you read it sui, which is the sound they borrowed from ancient China.
That sounds chaotic.
It requires a lot of context, but it also allows for incredible literary nuance. You can play games with meanings and sounds you just can't do in other scripts. It's a system that refuses to throw anything away.
So we've seen China react to India and Korea and Japan react to China. But the final layer of the web is when they all react to the West.
This happens in the 19th century. And unlike the other waves, which were about phonology or writing, this wave was all about grammar.
Wait, they didn't have grammar.
Not in the Western sense. Concepts like noun, verb, adjective, these are categories from Latin and Greek analysis. They just didn't really exist in the East Asian tradition.
So how did they analyze their language?
They focused more on what a word does in a sentence, its function, rather than what it is. But when the Dutch showed up in Japan, the Rangaku period, Japanese scholars started trying to map their language onto these Western frameworks.
They were retrofitting their language to fit Western blueprints.
Exactly. And China followed later. The first Chinese grammar books were modeled directly on Latin grammar rules. They were importing the technology of Western linguistics.
It's just a constant story of retrofitting.
It really is.
So let's zoom out.
Yeah.
We started by saying these languages are strangers, but they've been living in the same house for 2,000 years, borrowing each other's clothes.
That's a great image. And the synthesis for me is that writing isn't just a static tool, it's a technology. And like any technology, it can be hacked.
Hacked and engineered.
Right. China had to hack its own understanding of sound because of India. Korea literally engineered a brand new scientific alphabet from scratch to escape the old system. And Japan created this complex, layered remix that preserves the history of every single interaction they've ever had.
And looking at the map today, the outcomes are so distinct.
Completely. In the 20th century, North Korea and Vietnam abolished Chinese characters entirely. South Korea mostly phased them out.
But Japan kept them.
Japan kept the whole messy mix. And China simplified their characters to boost literacy. Everyone took a different path.
The web is still evolving.
Always.
So here's the thought I want to leave with you today. We talked about how the prestige of Chinese characters held back the adoption of Hangul in Korea for centuries. The better tech lost to the status quo. It makes me wonder, what better technologies, whether it's a way of working, a way of governing, a way of communicating, are we ignoring right now just because they don't fit the prestige, the status quo of our current culture?
That is a provocative thought. Just because a system is dominant, it doesn't mean it's the most efficient.
It just means it has the most momentum. Something to mull over. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. It's messy, it's complicated.
But it's deeply human.
Stay curious, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.